So as we kick off this new year, we're starting a series called Road Trip, all about the story that Jesus tells of a guy that we now call the Good Samaritan. But there's a whole story behind that name. A Samaritan is someone who comes from Samaria. That's the reason we have that name, and he's good because, well, I guess he did good things, but we're really talking about injustice and how God calls us to fight injustice in our world. And so we're kicking off this series here on the edge of Delmar Boulevard. It's Delmar Boulevard right behind me. And Delmar Boulevard, if you don't know, is a really important street in the history of St. Louis. You see, for years in St. Louis, there were laws passed about who could live in what neighborhood based on things like what color your skin was and what you looked like, how much money you had, and so on one side of Delmar, here on the south side, Forest Park is like 3 blocks that way, but you have homes that are worth hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars, these beautiful, wonderful homes. And on the other side of Delmar, directly behind me, you have homes that are worth tens of thousands of dollars. You have a lot more roofs that are caved in, homes in decay. And what's more interesting is that south of Delmar, you have predominantly white people living there, and north of Delmar, you have predominantly African American people living there. Because that's where people were allowed to live. And because of where they were allowed to live, that means some businesses went on one side of the street and some businesses went on the other side of the street. And you had better access to jobs on one side of the street and less access to jobs. The schools were better on one and worse on the other, and you get the idea, all because some laws made it that way. Something we called redlining. It's the definition of injustice here in our very own city of St. Louis. And God taught us something about what it means to love our neighbor and fight injustice. Because what's so interesting about Delmar is you have one street. You have people who literally live 2 blocks apart from each other, and yet they might as well live in different worlds. They're barely neighbors. But there was a man who came up to Jesus and said, so Jesus, what do I need to do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus says, what do you think you're supposed to do? And he says, well, I'm supposed to love God and love my neighbor. And Jesus says, you've got it right. You nailed it. And the guy then says, well, who's my neighbor? And Jesus tells a story. Tells a story about a man who was walking along a road to Jericho. And historically, this is kind of a dangerous road. I mean, there were lots of robbers. It was kind of a road off the beaten path. Like, people walked it all the time, but it was kind of remote. And so robbers would often be hiding on this road to steal people, to kill people. And so this man's walking on this road to Jericho, and all of a sudden, these robbers beat him up, take everything he has, and leave him naked on the ground. Now, what I love about this story is that they leave him naked, and so no one knows if this guy was rich or poor. No one knows what he was about, what his story was, where he was from. He's just a guy. Doesn't matter who he was. He was in need. And the way Jesus tells the story, the first person that sees this man is a priest and a Levite. And they go up to him and they pass on the other side of the road. They go around this man. They see him hurting. This is like the most religious people. And they can't be bothered. There are probably a lot of reasons for that, but they see somebody hurting and they don't even stop to check on him. They go around him. They don't want to be bothered. And they keep going. Now, the next 2 weeks, we're going to talk about the rest of the story and what happens, but what's interesting is that they see somebody hurting, they know that he's hurting, and they don't even stop to help. They don't call 911. I mean, I guess there was no 911. They don't check his pulse. They just avoid the problem. Now, when we get to the end of the story, you're gonna realize that was not the right answer. That wasn't what Jesus wanted them to do. It wasn't what God wanted them to do. And the question is, why do people pass by on the other side of the road when they see things that aren't right happening? I mean, that happens all the time today, right? But there's a lot of hurt and pain and injustice in the world, and it's easy just to go around to not do anything about it. When we see someone getting bullied, or we see rumors getting spread, and just to let it go. But maybe Jesus wants us to stop.